All right, this is Calibos, and I am responding to a thing that somebody posted on one of my videos. Diamond? Got that name right. Yeah, DI4MN Diamond. Uh, Icon, maybe. But he was asking about. They were asking. I don't know if it's honestly, it's not really a big deal. They were looking for help on applied energistics and refined storage. So I'll do this video on refined storage because that's kind of the easier one, and then I'll do another one on applied energistics. We'll compare the two. I'm going to go into creative. I'm going to learn how to type. That's probably the first step. There we go. So refined storage is refined storage. Pretty cool stuff. So the first thing is we're going to need a power source because all of this is based on power. So refined storage is pretty early game, so we're going to need a controller. Again, I'm going to need to learn how to type. So here's the applied energistics one. We could just find the tab, and that would probably. Refined storage. So let's grab a controller. That's the heart of the system. Let's grab we'll grab a little bit of cabling. We'll grab a grid. Drive, that seems cool. External storage, importer, exporter, disk manipulator. Want a creative power source. Gotta be one in this block. Back. Try this. Creative RF source, perfect. So we'll start with this. Basically just a giant battery from. So first things first, the heart of the refined storage system is the controller. Once you have the controller, everything else is pretty easy. So the controller, the recipe for it, and this may change depending on the pack, is some of the quartz enriched iron, some silicon, and the machine casing. Now I'm using pack is Antimatter Chemistry, the video that somebody brought it in. So we'll start at the beginning. Quartz enriched iron. You'll need a lot of this. It's fairly easy to get. It's just 3 iron and nether quartz. Pretty simple. So you can just craft that in your square or a grid. It makes a block. It's pretty solid. Next thing is going to be, you'll see that machine casing is made with the quartz enriched iron. So silicon, typically for refined storage, you're going to be smelting some sort of quartz. You can do nether quartz, crushed quartz, all of that. Depending on what's available in the pack, you may have more options, and you can actually make it straight from sand, basically Imperial Stonework Factory in this pack, but you can just like grind sand in a sag mill or something like that. Manufacturer just grinds it down. In this pack, you can also just craft it with silicon. So not super complicated to get quartz. Probably more complicated, or at least a few more steps, is this processor. So all of the processors, and there's one for iron, there's one for gold, there's one for diamonds, like whatever, which like, well, we'll just ignore that for now. So there's one for iron, there's one for gold, there's one for diamonds. So the recipes are basically all the same, except you're switching out, the diamond for the iron for the gold, depending on which processor you're making. So it's just that, a redstone and silicon, and the processor binding. Processor binding is going to be spring and pink slime. And you may or may not have difficulty getting that. Again, this recipe can change based on the pack. I'm not actually sure if that's the base recipe or if this is an altered recipe, but it's the recipe in this pack. Once you've crafted the advanced processor, you just smelt it in any furnace or smelting, a redstone furnace or the extra utilities furnace, and there you go. But this is the heart of the refined storage system. Now we need some cables. You'll notice that we have cables. So from here, you'll see it has an interface. It doesn't have anything in the interface, but we can scroll. This is the total internal power buffer of the controller. We can actually turn the network on and off based on redstone control. I would recommend not messing with this unless you specifically are you have a specific goal in mind and know what you're doing. It's generally not a good idea to have your network turn on and off. So these cables, they're probably the next major piece that you're going to be seeing, and you'll be seeing a lot of them. Technically, what they do is they form the network into kind of like a multi-block. But a spread out, well, not really a multi-block, I guess. But they connect all the various pieces of the network. And it has some of the characteristics of, well, it's just cabling, really. Man, I'm terrible at this. I know what I'm doing when not at it. So, right. Anyway, you'll notice that it now has identified that there are 6 pieces of cable connected to the network and a disk drive. Neither one of these are actually using any power. Now, if we have a grid, and a grid is kind of like the computer screen, shows that there is nothing in it. This is kind of where your basic inventory is going to be. It's going to be a listing of all of the things that are in your refined storage. On the left-hand side, you'll see that there is a redstone mode, much like the controller. You can have it redstone sensitive, so it's on when there's a signal or off when there's a signal, your choice. You can change the display. So one shows only craftables, another shows both. This shows only stuff you actually have. I generally leave it on normal unless I'm looking for something. Sorting direction, you can sort it by descending or ascending. And that's kind of, first to last or last to first sort of deal. And this changes things by the last thing that you messed with for this one. Inventory tweaks, so recipes that have been altered. How many of whatever you have, what they're named, and this is the Minecraft ID. Search box mode basically says, this is your search box. When you type stuff in, if I had stuff in there, it would look for it. And we can do JEI synchronize. So now I can go ahead and if you look at the bottom right, it is echoing what I place here. So it'll look in JEI as well. This is what I usually like. So size, you can make it a size of a base chest, larger. Just depends on how you want to go, what you prefer. Weird. Anyway, so now you'll see that this is using just a little bit of power. 2 FE. So that's pretty much just another name for RF. And the more stuff we have, the more it uses. So get rid of this. I'll get some drives in here. They're actually called disks. So that we have disks of various sizes. The grids. So the grids, it's going to be fairly simple. It's glass, and then you have the construction core and the destruction core. So what the construction core and the destruction core do is this basically is one of the ingredients that it's kind of like the excuse that it creates something out of nothing or puts something into the world. And it's just your basic processor, which is kind of the iron processor. Again, we've got the machine casing, which is just the quartz enriched iron around stone. Like you'll be using a lot of that. Then you have the improved processor, which is the gold version. So this grid, all it does is show you contents. Now, if you want something a little bit better, you have this, the crafting grid. And what the crafting grid does, let's pull out a crafting grid. Crafting grid. So crafting grid, and all of this is connected because of the cable. Power goes out immediately. I do that. And crafting grid will show up here. Same amount of power as the regular grid. I definitely recommend upgrading to this. You'll notice that this has all the same stuff, but it now also includes a an actual crafting grid. That. So if we had like wood and stuff like that, crafting grid, you can use it, and you can also craft with anything stored in. So if we go ahead and we take some of these disks, put them in the drive recipe real quick. Drive. A chest of any sort, one of the advanced processors, which is the one made with diamonds, one of the machine casings, and slap that down. Drives, the storage disks, they're again pretty simple. All you have to do is make a 1K storage part. So it's just silicon, redstone, quartz enriched iron, and glass. It's very inexpensive, and it holds 1,000 items. Once you have that part, you can either use this recipe here and make a storage disk, or you can craft it together with a storage housing, which is just the recipe that was around the disk. So it's 3 redstone, 3 quartz enriched iron, and 2 glass. And you can see that it's the same redstone, 3 quartz enriched iron, 2. And it holds 1,000 items. If you get any of the 4K storage disk, it holds 4,000 items, 16K. It holds 16,064. Creative, I think, holds an infinite number. Weird. The 4K drive or storage part is made with 1K storage parts. I've already seen the recipe before, and 4 basic processors. And as you go up the chain, each one is made with, 3 of the previous one, and then the improved processor. So the one previous to this used iron, this one uses gold, and if we go up to the 4K one, it uses the diamond processor. So 64K one will hold 64,000 items. So if you do the math, this holds 1,000, right? Go up to the 4K one, and it holds 4,000, but it only uses enough 1,000 storage parts to make 3. If we go up to the 16K one, it uses 3 4K storage parts, which is 12,000 storage versus 16. Then we go up to 64, and it uses 3 of the 16s, which is 48. So every time you go up, you actually get a better storage option. You end up saving. So I definitely recommend upgrading as far and as fast as you can to the 64K storage parts. 64,000 items is a lot. But once you have stuff in the system, you can store things in the system and then access them from any grid. So there we go. Cool stuff, right? Now, you don't need to just store stuff in these disk drives. So if we want, we can grab a chest. Any chest. And we'll slap it over here. Right? And we can go ahead and put the, like this, external storage. So now, this chest is considered storage for the network. So it is now visible in all of our grids, and we can pull stuff out from there. Now, if we put stuff back, you'll notice it's not in there, but it's still in the system because it is in this disk. You'll notice that this has 62 out of 1,000 items, and this has 0 out of 1,000, and this shows our total storage for this drive. Now, if we want to, we can go ahead and set the priority to -1. So what that does is when you set a priority for any of these, if we pull stuff out, pull all the things out, and we'll notice that the numbers have gone down, and we put them back in, now they're in the system, but neither one of these have anything in it. So if we look over here in the chest, because the chest now has a higher priority than the disk drives, it will by preference store stuff into the chest. Now if we go ahead and we get a bunch of random stuff, we don't really have to have a lot of random. Throw that all in here. But now there's a button that actually allows you to pull out a bunch of random things. Duplicate an item, but I don't spend enough time in creative to know what it is. Here, all of this is going to end up in the chest. The chest is now full. And if we come over here, we'll notice that there are 64 items in the disk. So once it didn't have any more room in the chest, it went back to storing stuff in the disk. This behavior can be very important. And if we wanted to, we could actually set it the other way, so it prefers to store things here rather than there. Now, so this is a behavior which can be very useful, especially when you're talking about using something like storage drawers. So if we look for the drawer controller, and we set a drawer controller down. Fine, I guess. External storage. And again, if we look through this, it'll show us that we have 2 external storages that require power. We can set this up at a priority of +1. Get some drawers, huh? Random drawers. So now, this drawer controller has the highest priority in the system. So anything that we put in here, we can pull that out. Notice that it put the drawers in. And what it'll do is, because it has the highest priority, it will put stuff in here first. And because all of these are unlocked, it will put them in a random spot near the controller. So everything that we pull out and put back in well, it's going back out. I don't know. It's supposed to be putting back in here by preference. Maybe I forgot to change the priority. Yeah, I didn't change the priority. Go. Now it'll work. We'll pull all of this stuff out. And just to confirm, it all came out of the chest. I'm going to throw it all in there, and then if you watch to the right, everything went into the drawers. And as far as the refined storage system is concerned, all of this is in the system. So it doesn't care. It really doesn't. It only starts caring when it absolutely runs out of space. If there's no room in the storage drawers, no room in the chest, and both of these drives are full, then you won't be able to put stuff in and out. And this can be a problem because you can end up not being able to craft stuff, because it needs to create a space for the stuff to craft. So next step, another chest. So one of the next things that we look at is things like this. So we have already used the external storage, and we have now the importer, and we also have an exporter. So an importer pulls stuff out of whatever you attach it to and puts it in. So for example, if I go ahead and put a chest in here, notice it went away almost immediately. Come over here, we have a chest in this. I pull that out, chest, imports it into the system. No big deal. The exporter does something very similar. So get some more cable. Fine. So now we have a bunch of cables in. Now what the exporter does is it pulls stuff out of the system, but you'll notice that nothing is being pulled out. So importer, it basically also is redstone sensitive if you want. We can switch it from items to fluids. In applied energistics, it actually is 2 different things. But in refined storage, it's one or the other. You can set it. We can have blacklist or whitelist. So what blacklist does is this is the thing that's forbidden. So it will take everything out except that. If you say whitelist, say this is the thing that's allowed. So if I go ahead and have Put that in there. Moved it, but if I grab all of these and I toss them in here, nothing happens because they're not on the whitelist, so they don't go in. Now, the exporter does something very similar. If we go ahead and grab a cable, go ahead and put the cable in here. So now cable's in the export list. Now this is a ghost image. It's not a real thing. We keep the one that we had. Now it is exporting cable into this chest. Come over here to where our cable is stored. We'll notice that the number is gradually going down. Cool as that, right? So using these two behaviors, you can actually interact with a lot of machines and inventories for a lot of purposes. And possible to say exactly how you'd want to do that. There are a lot of cool furnace. Maybe a different furnace, something electric. You like power, right? Power. Furnace has power. I'm going to say exporter on this side and an exporter on this side, and cabling. Let's look in here. Gravel. We want to tell it, can we cook gravel in this pack? I have no idea. Something we can cook. So logs. Oak. Something we can cook. Gotta be something. You can tell it to export oak. And put the into system. So now what's going to happen is this is going to fill this with oak, and it's going to be cooked into charcoal, and then this importer is going to put all of the charcoal into the system, which is going to appear right here. So this is the beginnings of automation for refined storage. So most of the rest of the behaviors for refined storage actually descend from these. So portable grid is fluid pattern. Crafting monitor, storage monitor, security monitor, crafter. 1K storage. So you're not always going to have room for the resources to make this disk drive. You have the 1K storage block. So it's a machine casing, a 1K storage part, and redstone. Honestly, I've never used these because they're okay. Nothing inherently wrong with them. But it basically does, that entire block, one of these drives. So if you absolutely want to place it into the world for some reason, then you can put it in there. Combine it with a minecart or something. Not sure you can combine it with a minecart, but maybe sticky piston stuff from one place to another. Who knows? There's a lot of things you could. But all it does is it acts like a drive. So you can set the priority as normal. This spot along the top, you can actually tell it to specifically only store certain things. And you have 9 spots to pick. You can actually tell it to only put stuff in or only take stuff out or both. Nbt data. So if you care about like enchanting, different enchantments have different Nbt data. Some other mods will actually use Nbt data as well. That's just kind of like the extra numbers. Unless you know what you're doing with Nbt, not in refined storage, but like in general, it's bad to mess with Nbt. But typically you see that with enchanting, and like some mods will use it for like special marking abilities, stuff like that. So from there, you'll see that we have just like increased sizes of those all the way up to 64 again, and then creative. Guessing that holds quite a lot of items. I've never used it. You have the fluid storage blocks. So fluid storage is going to be handled in a fairly similar way. So we'll put that down. Got a fluid grid. One of these down too. And the fluid grid is going to be what we use to handle fluid. Get a bucket of water. Now we have 1 bucket of water. Last modified by me. Now. And that's going to be stored in here. So this holds 64, basically 64 buckets of fluid, any fluid. It'll mix and match as necessary, doesn't matter. We go up the tree, 256 buckets, 1,024 buckets, 4,096 buckets. And we can actually store on the disk drives as well. If we look at our drives, we can change it to fluids. So now if we take our bucket and go, drop that in there. So this should be right. Oh. I thought that there was a way to also set that for fluid. I'm probably forgetting a task. Wrong. Refined storage isn't used a lot. People like to do the harder things. Typically, applied energistic is harder. I think that refined storage is as good, has different benefits. Anyway, so yeah, you can use these for fluid storage. There's actually a way to use these disk drives to store fluids as well. And you should just be able to set it like that and then have it use fluids. Let's check storage. Oh, right, you need the fluid storage disks. Okay, that's fair enough. The fluid storage parts are just about exactly the same, except you need a bucket instead of redstone. And then you'll combine them up in very similar ways. So 3 of one plus the processor of the next level gives you the next one. And I hope I'm explaining this well. So probably the next and most complicated bit of this is the crafter. So if we put the crafter down somewhere, you'll notice that it very distinctly has a front. It has an interface. And what you'll end up doing with the crafter, and we like to use crafting monitor. This shows you all the tasks that are going. The grid, we're also going to need pattern grid. So we have a lot of different grids, and they do take more space than the applied energistics ones. That's kind of like where you're going with it. Patterns are patterns for the. So you'll notice the patterns automatically went over here when I shift clicked them. So what we can do is we can go ahead and say this 4 oak wood makes a crafting table, and then we create the pattern. Then we go over here to the crafter and we put the pattern in there. Now, if we come over here and we take the crafting table out, you'll notice at the bottom of the list we now have a picture of the crafting table, and it says craft. Now we can actually tell it, make me 10 crafting tables. And then while that's crafting, we can actually go to the crafting monitor. Weren't fast enough, it's probably done already. We have the 10 crafting tables, but while it was going, if we were faster, we could have seen them here making them. And it made it in this device, basically. This isn't just for crafting an individual. This is basically the crafting table for refined storage, but it's more than that. If we take a crafter and we tell the crafter, put it here, I guess. Let's get a machine. How about fancy thing that we want to accomplish? I guess we can furnace. Creative RF source. Perfect. Oh, do we have mechanism or Ender IO? Not no. Thermal. Okay, thermal is fine. Let's grab a pulverizer. So we can tell it, this is the back, that everything comes in and out the back. Tell it to auto input and auto output. Let's grab some cobblestone. Got stone. Yeah. So for an example, if we go ahead and we put a cobblestone in here, after a little bit of processing, we'll get gravel, right? Not auto outputting. we tell it in our pattern grid here, we'll make it a processing pattern because there's no actual crafting recipe for it. We take one cobblestone, we process it, it becomes one gravel. Then we come over here, we tell it to grab our gravel. Notice we now have a crafting recipe for gravel. We'll tell it to process. Now it says it's missing 10 cobble, which makes sense because it doesn't have any cobble. What we can do is just put cobble in and then ask it to craft 10 gravel. So it is now exported the 10 cobblestone in. It should actually export back in crafter. Not. May simply not be able to handle a get processing. All of our here now. We moved it. Now everything front is everything is now being exported back here. So now we have 2 left. Have 1 left. And 10. So that's how you use the crafting system, auto crafting. It's a matter of setting up enough of the crafters to use all of the things that you want to use. So portable grid, basically a laptop, like an old school laptop. We can set it out pretty much anywhere. Charge it to. It is. Anyway. So security manager basically says who's allowed to mess with your fine tool network. Enriched for card for network card. Security card says I put this in, and whoever is using this card, I can configure the card for different abilities. They have access to everything. And that is individual to the player, not specifically the terminal. So you would set that to a player. And you would give that player specific rights to what you wanted it to do. So you could allow someone access to your stuff to pull stuff out or put stuff in. So if you had a friend that you kind of trusted, you could say, you're not allowed to change the network. You can't move any of the blocks or cables, but, and that's modify opening the block graphical interfaces like this stuff. Adding or removing devices to or from the network, so it wouldn't allow them to like break anything or add anything to the network. And the ability to change security options, this menu here. Put stuff into the network. So you could say, Fred, for example, has the ability to add items into the network storage, while Joe has the ability to take stuff out. Allows auto-crafting. So you could say they can auto-craft stuff, but they can't take things out. So you can configure it quite a few ways depending on how you want it. And so bound to Calibos. So I right-clicked it, shift right-clicked it in the air, and now I can set my own permissions. So if you right-click it on someone, change their personal stuff. Solid that there was. Wireless grid. So I shift right-clicked the wireless grid on the controller, and now the controller is linked to and you see the actual coordinates of the control block. Wireless. Charger of any kind of charger. Well, that's frustrating. Oh, wait. On to a energetic confusion. That's what we want. Slap down an energetic confuser on this thing. Like touching it is fine. Now, this is going to be charged up. Charged. Now we can walk away. I'm way over here. Should be about 16 blocks. There we go. Blocks. From this antenna. Blocks. And we can actually increase the range, and for exactly what the method is that it might simply be 16 blocks from the antenna, and you have to set up a more antennas as you go, which is not a super big deal because they're relatively inexpensive. Wireless trip. They do have to go on a cable. It does require a diamond, for the advanced processor and an pearl. But yeah, it must be placed on a cable. You'll notice it is back on a cable there. I don't think that there's anything else super complicated about of this. Relays and interfaces. So I haven't actually used relays or interfaces, and I'm not sure what the detector is. Constructors and destructors, I know what they are. So the destructor, that's fine actually. Constructor, get a random block here. Constructor and a table. what the constructor and the destructor do is you'll notice the block immediately vanished because the destructor ate it. So if you take the So what we did was we went into the constructor's interface and we put a block of quartz and iron here. So what this is going to do is this is going to place a block of enriched iron. Now the destructor here is just going to destroy it because that's what it's stopped now though because we have it in blacklist mode. That means it's not allowed to break the block of quartz and rich iron, but if we change this to whitelist, it starts doing it again, and it's just placing and removing it over and over and over again. Now you can use this behavior to your advantage, and you don't have to place them together. So if you know that certain blocks are going to appear certain places, for example, if you want to use it as a cobblestone generator, you can use it as a cobblestone. You can actually use this for water too, because if you want to, go ahead and go like so. Actually, let's place this down. Destructor, water. So now that is an infinite source of water, correct? We'll make this all the way down. Change this to fluids. And what it is doing is it is putting fluids into the system. And it'll keep doing this until the system is full. That is an infinite water source, and it just trying to take the block into it. Now we can actually do similar things with the constructor. We can go ahead and say constructor, another giant random mess here. We'll change this to fluids, and we'll tell it place water. So now what's going on is placing a water block. So you can do this with any fluid that's in your system, water, lava, whatever. It can be very handy if you are trying to certain mods that will, like, you need to place lava or pick lava up. So you can make a lava fabricator. There are mods that will make lava in the world, and you can just pick it up or place it if you want to use it for power or something. So, see what other fascinating things to cover. There is a wireless grid for fluids and crafting monitors, and they have the regular one, the charged one, and the creative one, which never runs out of power. Same for the fluids, same for the crafting monitors, and then the crafting grid, which is one that allows you to have the 3x3 crafting square, which is of course my favorite. I think that covers the basics. That's pretty much everything as far as find storage. I mean, I've been at this an hour, probably the longest bit I've done. So I don't know about the reader and the writer. Hold on, let me look. All right, like the readers and the writers are actually pretty simple. Let's get rid of these. So we'll notice that we have 64 buckets in the system, right? Place this. Let's get ourselves a reader and a writer. Reader, writer. reader and a writer. Break that. Bucket of water again. So what I'm told is the reader and the writer basically work like the importer and the exporter, except it doesn't actually put stuff into the system. So we can put a channel in here and go, Fred. I don't know why I keep using Fred. Great name, isn't it? So now, if we have Fred, writer. Now, what they should be doing is goods and energy and stuff. So I think you actually have to import them into it. So a hopper or something. Probably doesn't move blocks, kind of like stuff. Oh, I've already got one. Red. I can type ice. Well, what it's supposed to do, and I'll probably look into it some other time, is... Oh, it's not connected. So this moved through the system without actually using any of our storage. So if you don't want something to go to storage, then this is what you'd set up to do. And it is channel based, so we had to switch both of these to the channel Fred before it would actually work. I think that actually covers everything in refined storage. Seems like a pretty solid way to go. I guess I could have been a little bit more clear about how to make the individual pieces. There is JEI, and it'll actually walk you through the steps. There's nothing, no special block you need to craft any of it. And once it's connected to the controller, it doesn't have any special technical, things that you need to track. It's a very user-friendly and easy-to-learn system. The portable grid, which we didn't really play with, portable grid, all it is just kind of like on top of the thing. Well, it needs power. I don't. Here's power. So it's basically just one of these grids that you can slap anywhere. I do not believe that there are any special things to do with it, and I do not remember how to link them. But all they are is really one of these. So you can just have one that you carry around. And yeah, just carry it around. It's kind of like the wireless grid, but key and you can place it if you do. So that's it. So that's refined storage. That is most of it in a nutshell. There are some complicated stuff you can do with it, but the basics are actually pretty simple. And I guess we'll call it here. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them. For you, Diamond, I'm sorry if I'm not very clear, but I will, again, answer any questions you've got. So have a good night.